Yep. So I'm Talmore, I'm GM of Haven, Ashes of Creation. I've been leading World of Warcraft PvE raiding guilds for at least the last 10 years. We had a reasonably large size community in World of Warcraft. Trying to get buy-in for all those players to come spend the money to play Ashes has been tough, but we've had some people come over. So our guild is in Ashes is primarily made of Ashes players, either playing Ashes or MMOs in general. First time. We're focused mostly on PvE and crafting. We're trying to get into the PvE content as well. The guild perspective in Ashes has just been getting a chance to introduce them to content. I'd say so far, we've already made so many memorable memories that a lot of times you struggle to find a good community and a good game.
I am interested. I'm interested in who you are, a little bit of your background. I'm also interested just kind of in the survey in general, like how many responses you got.
Yes,
Um,
so I'll start with my background information. I did not play Ashes of Creation. I also have not looked at any of the public play tests. I followed this game for a very, very long time, but it was like way back when it was all concepts and no fruition. And the reason I didn't check out the play test was kind of intentional. I wanted to like kind of save the experience for when I was actually playing the game. But as we've
sure.
gotten closer to the date here, everybody seems to like the media has changed dramatically in the last year. It's actually kind of impressive. But as far as who I am as a gamer, I actually did a lot in New World and in Throne and Liberty. In New World, I was all in on that beta. I did the beta and we like ruled the server, and then I went in the actual game and we did great for the first month. But then it all, you know how that game went. It all dried up.
Sure.
Uh, Throne and Liberty, I was like a main player on the Henry server. Um, but just as these kind of new MMOs have been, they dry up pretty fast. So you kind of have this burst of energy and then everything falls apart. And that's kind of
Right.
been my experience of these MMO launches. But yeah, so that's a little bit about me. The interest I have is new MMOs come out. There's kind of this excitement. But for a lot of the hardcore players, it burns out quickly. And I'll have players that they're selling 15 hours a day for 2 months, and then they just quit and they're just
Sure.
gone. But while these players, all of these players, at the same time, hundreds of players are spending this dramatic, large amount of time playing the game, there's all these unbelievable stories that get created, these factions that rise and fall, all while everyone's experiencing a new game. And that's kind of what I'm interested in hearing about, interested in talking about. And then I have a lot of questions just about things that I'm kind of personally interested for when I go to play Ashes of Creation. You asked about the survey. The survey was posted to the Discord and the Reddit. I don't know which one that you. Yeah,
I
you
saw it on Reddit.
saw it on Reddit. Perfect. On Reddit and Discord together, we got just about 35 responses. But as you know, that the survey, how it worked is there was a large section for free response. So I got
Yep.
35 kind of crazy body texts that I got to got to read through. So it was pretty fun, all in all, I'd say. Um, and I've been creating some videos on the YouTube. I don't know if you've checked out my YouTube. It's not that big. My only claim to fame is that I did get a comment from the Lazy Peon this morning, which was
Nice.
very nice. But my channel is just starting. The idea is that I want to build and foster like a community, and I want to be more. I want to be a copium machine. I don't want to make these big thumbnails where it's like this game's totally dead, because
Yeah.
honestly, the dream is that any of these games, I don't care which game it is, I've been selling on Ashes of Creation, but I don't care if it's a Riot MMO, I don't care what it is. I just want something to beat out uh, Final Fantasy 15 and World of Warcraft. I just want these games to go away. I will not go away, for instance, but I want a game like Ashes to be as big as these two other gigantic giants, right? And New World
Yep.
didn't do that, and Throne and Liberty didn't do that. So I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to do here. Um,
Nice.
but I have some questions for you. Like you said that you are uh, a guild leader. You said that you're a
Yep.
hardcore player. You said that you're
Yep.
optimistic about Ashes of Creation. I actually have your survey pulled up with me right now.
I would say I'm trying to remember exactly what I said in there.
Yeah, if you want me to go through it, I asked if you're enjoying the alpha. You said yes. I said, are you optimistic? You said also yes. I asked what kind of player you were. You said a hardcore player, and you said that you believe that the game is a group play game. Um, you also said that you prefer the game to be a group play game. And when asked about a feeling on anything in particular, you brought up that it feels like a lot of items are placeholders and that there's a lot of voids in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest point to touch on is that placeholder comment. The game has definitely, in my opinion, overpromised a lot of stuff. I've been very optimistic by some of the ideas that Intrepid have been kind of thrown around over the course of development. The ideas, some of them you can start to see kind of get shaped in certain ways. Other ideas that I've heard them talk about just are completely missing, and it's hard to play the game, and the pieces that are kind of shaped, they are fun and they feel really good, and every time I'm in a spot, I can think in my head, oh man, if this one other thing that they talked about or these things that they talked about were actually implemented or actually developed or actually fleshed out, then my experience right now, that's already, it's not terrible, it's not super exhilarating or anything, but I can visualize it in my head that this experience would be so much better if these things were in the game, and that's what keeps me optimistic, I think.
Mhm.
um, Now, overpromise and underdelivered is definitely the tagline of the entire alpha experience so far. I'm not, I'm not by any means a game developer. I haven't set any kind of foot into that world myself. So I don't know how long these kinds of things are supposed to take. But when you have roadmaps that have, um, you know, release dates for different systems and classes and zones on the map. That stuff just isn't there, or at least it's not there completely. Like I don't want to pull a narc and just say that this stuff isn't in the game at all because a lot of it is. But and I don't know if you've seen the video that I'm referring to with narc.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think it's a little disingenuous to say the stuff's missing, and I think that he kind of approached the topic from the wrong angle. But I do think a lot of what he was saying is correct. Like we've been promised some of these things, they're not there. Um, if they would be there, the game would be way better.
So I do
And
I
I
do
guess
want to expand on this idea because this keeps coming up, this idea of promise. What exactly has been promised for the Ashes of Creation Alpha that hasn't been given? Um, and I do mean, like, is this just people saying that he said this and that it's a promise, or is this like a tweet that was, or like a
sure.
model that was saying that these items would be out at a certain time or out in
I
general, and they just haven't.
it, yeah, and maybe it's less of a promise and more of an expectation. Like for me, the economy is obviously like the big hot topic right now. Like things in the last two phases good, and they have a direction for
Yeah.
what they want to go with how gear drops and crafting are supposed to play in the game. And when they say, okay, we realize there's a problem, we're going to fix it. We're going to delay launches even because it's not fixed, and we want it to be in a good place. And then it comes out and it's lackluster. To me, that feels like a promise being unfulfilled. Now, promise is probably thrown around loosely there. And don't get me wrong, they have no obligation, right? Like they are in their development process. They don't have to satisfy me. I mean, I'm not, they're not contractually bound. I've not signed a, you know what I mean? So I don't, maybe promises isn't the right word, but it feels like a promise when you've got, roadmaps that have specific content releases at specific dates, and then those things get pushed back. And when the dates do come and the releases do come, they're either missing entirely or delayed again or just not like completely done.
In 2021, there was a big event, right? There was some sort of condensing of what was going to be launched. Is this correct? Like they had this idea of a huge world, and it's like it was condensed into a much smaller one in some
Yeah,
2020.
I'm
Yeah.
not 100% familiar with that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but when did you start following Ashes of Creation?
So I started following Ashes. I was a longtime World of Warcraft player, and it was in the middle of the original classic Vanilla WoW launch. So sometime 2019, 2020, I started to, some things that were coming out started to pique my interest. Um, didn't follow like super closely until maybe about a year and a half ago. So there probably were some things. Was a shift that I missed, but
Just as a quick question, I don't know if I'll put this in, but like, would you play the game if it was Unreal 4, or do you think the change to Unreal 5 was necessary?
um, I would probably, I don't know enough about the know what the differences are. Everything they showcased felt very graphical. It felt very um utility for them. Like these are the things that are that if we switch to UE5 are going to make it easier for us to make the game. And I keep hearing the quote, and I don't know if it's an actual quote from Intrepid or if it's just a thing that people keep throwing around, but they keep saying that Intrepid's not making a game, they're making a game factory right now. Um, and that it's not about fleshing stuff out, it's about getting their processes and their workflows together so that they can pump out, because we've got maybe 20% of the map open right now. And to be able to insert those assets and make these environments, and who knows how far they are that's not been released.
So on
But
that point, so I know that there's a level cap. So is there tons of the game that you're not actually able to play yet that is already made, you think, that is just not released? Or have they only actually fleshed out the experience from 1 to 25 or something like that?
In terms of the world, I know that they've showcased a few biomes that we haven't seen. Um, so I don't know how much of the actual like world is developed and assets placed, and I know that of the area that's out, um, there's a massive underwhelming amount of content that's been added into the world. There's a lack of quests. There's a lack of interest, dungeons. So they've added these new areas to the world that are just not useful to go to. And that makes it really hard because now the game is still condensed to the one biome, is playing still in the one biome, and there's systems that are kind of expecting you to travel across the world. The caravan system's expecting you to take resources to another end of the map so you can sell it. Well, there's no one there buying resources, so it's not really a plan to do that.
Sure, yeah. And then
There's a
you,
lot of things like that
yeah.
it's like I can think to myself in my head, well, when the game is out and there's half of the server population is on the other side of the map, this will make sense. And those things just don't feel
Yeah,
very
in New
good right
World,
now.
did you ever play New World?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, so the interesting thing there is they had a pretty similar system, where there would be all of these different settlements and they would get upgraded depending on the player input. But what that really turned into was the bottom of the map had only low level players and the top of the map was just tons of like it really condensed. It stagnated the population into two different areas. It was good players come here because this just makes sense, and bad players or like low level players are only over here because they're leveling up. And as the game hit month 2, the early cities were pretty much desolate, right? Um,
Yeah,
and I think that was well, not a promise. I shouldn't say promise as we talked about, but that this kind of creating a interactive world was something that Intrepid and their city settlement system was supposed to attack and be like, well, you can actually have a guild that's over here and a guild that's over here, and they can
right.
interact and travel this big distance, and I think that's a great idea, but you would say that that's not working.
Um, yeah, I mean honestly, the biggest thing, and and there's systems like there's a lot of stuff just because I haven't followed the actual development live streams like as closely as I could. Like you just hear a lot of people talk about, oh, this is what they're supposed to do, and so I actually don't know if this is true. I'm pretty sure it is, but at one point, and it may not be the case anymore. At one point, they had discussed doing dynamic like mob levels based on zone level as well. So you wouldn't have high level zones. You would just have, this is what the base level is at a level 0 zone. And then as it leveled up, the mobs would get increasingly more difficult, which means you could play wherever you wanted, kind of more of a preference thing. But that all aside, there's not the points of interest is really the big thing. There aren't the kinds of dungeons and uh, and just grind spots or quest locations that there are in the Riverlands is definitely the thing they have spent the most time on. And it's also kind of one of those things where it is a thing that gives me hope for the rest of the map too, because it's like, well, once they sit down and spend the time that they've spent on the Riverlands to push content into these places as well, then sure, yeah, this will be great.
I do think that concept of like mobs leveling with you is an interesting one because they have done that in World of Warcraft. And as a new player, it makes sense because you get to experience like any zone that you want at any time that you want.
Right.
But for those older players that want to feel like that they've really gained something and that they are now able to use that to like destroy whatever it is they've gone past, right? Like at
Right.
level in World of Warcraft, the example is level 60, doing 3 million damage to the knoll outside of
Sure.
Elwyn Forest, right? Uh, but do you think that that show of power is an important thing for an MMO, or do you just think that the game should work? Like people, the interactability of people is more important than like this show of power.
Well, I think they're definitely connected. Like what connects people more than being able to show other people your power, right? Like I mean that's a lot of what the MMO genre is about to me.
Perfect. Then this is a segue into a question I have here. From your interpretation of how this game is going, would you say that this is a vertical MMO or a horizontal MMO?
Vertical or horizontal, in what sense?
So when you explore these topics like vertical and horizontal MMO, your examples are RuneScape being a horizontal MMO and World of
Okay.
Warcraft being a vertical MMO, which means that
Oh, sure.
at a certain level you cannot touch someone that's like of a higher level, right? If they're a higher level than you by 5, then your attacks just don't hit them, right? But
Right.
when you're gathering things along the way, like in RuneScape, these materials that you gather are very, very important at the highest level. In fact, almost just as important as the materials that you'll gather at the high levels, because progression system is horizontal. There's not new expansions that make newest best gear, that make newest, like, amazing things, right? There's not this kind of gear treadmill that you see and that I've alluded to in my other videos about World of Warcraft. It's just like things that you do matter at all levels. And as a classic World of Warcraft player, that's actually a lot more of what Classic was like, where if you farmed that pendant at level 40, that was still your best in slot item when you were level 60. From your opinion, do you see Ashes of Creation somewhere in the middle here, on one side or the other?
I would definitely say in the middle. They've done the crafting system in a way where a lot of the materials are used in multiple levels of your profession. So you may be farming a ruby. That ruby could end up making initiate gear. It could end up making adept gear. I believe they still end up going into some of the radiant patterns as well. So it's like, yes, in the way they've implemented the crafting system, absolutely. I would say in PvP, absolutely not. Just the level scaling is so huge in PvP. Even at like level 20, it doesn't matter what gear you have, you're not beating level 25. And some of that's kind of intentional, right? Like that's pretty normal, I think, for an MMO. Um, in terms of like individual player power, I would say horizontal is probably a better description.
Hmm.
Um, there's not, just because the gear is so rare, at least at this point in the alpha, that I mean, I'm still wearing. A lot of people I know are still wearing gear that's uh, level 10 gear, and they're in their 20s, and that's after hours and hours of spending time trying to grind or
Okay,
craft
yeah.
gear. So,
On that point, actually, I was on like Reddit and places, and this perception that this game cannot be played solo kept coming up over and over again. Like when I say people, I mean some specific redditors have brought up
sure.
that like the game feels impossible to play solo because it is too group oriented, and these like crafting systems require such an like egregious amount of materials that you couldn't accomplish it by yourself. From your
Um,
perspective, is this true?
I wouldn't say couldn't. I would say reasonably wouldn't. It's not a you couldn't do it. It's just it would take a substantially larger amount of time to do it solo.
Hmm.
Um, we good?
Yeah, could you repeat the
Okay.
last maybe 10 seconds?
Yeah, at least in this phase, and I keep saying at least in this phase because crafting has just been butchered, and I believe that the community is so. I don't want to speak for the whole community. It's kind of why I'm hesitant here. From what I have seen, at least the community is not divided. The community is very much in agreement. The crafting system is very broken. I believe Intrepid has acknowledged this in some ways as well. And so I don't want to get hung up too much on how it is now.
Hmm.
But how it is now, I would say that doing it solo um, would not be realistic, at least from a crafting perspective. Now, there's a lot of group content that's not crafting related that just isn't made to be done solo. Like, unless you spent a lot of time and bought the best gear to be able to handle, but it's the same thing in the MMO. If you're fighting boss mobs, like, you're supposed to do that by yourself. Um, but with the crafting system in particular, the amount of materials that are required, even for entry level gear, is so substantial. And not to mention that all of the crafting, the processing, and the gathering skills are so intertwined, and you're limited to how many you can select to level up. That not that you couldn't do it, like, solo is tricky because you would definitely have to have other people to do it. But I mean, there's an economy and a market, like you pay um, someone with those skills to do it for you. But some of the stuff, the sheer amount of materials that are needed to get our weaponsmith to level 10 and level 20 respectively, like, it's not something one person realistic to be able to do. I don't think. No.
Do you believe, like, for me, there's the desperation to get BIS in a lot of
Sure.
MMORPG games. And though people really like obtaining the best thing, in fact, a lot of people believe that if you don't have the best thing, then you might as well be worthless. And especially World of Warcraft, this is the case. Like, if you're not pumping that extra 1%, then why are you even in
Right.
my raid party, right? But I think it's a very unhealthy. Personally, I believe that it's a very unhealthy way to create a game, and I don't mind like these. I know that they're going to get harassed online. They're going to be like, "I grinded 1,000 hours and I didn't even get the best whatever loot in the game." But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, right? I think that
Right.
it allows a lot of variety of plays, a lot of funneling into one character. But do you believe the one thing that worries me? There's a lot of things that worry me, but one thing is alternate accounts. Um, Alternate accounts in this game, are they useful? Are they not useful? If this game were to continue, like let's say 3, 4 months down the line, would
Mhm.
the people that you're playing alongside, would they like max out and then start a new character and then like get other professions and then max out? Or like from your interpretation of the game, do you think that, because if you don't have to make alternate accounts, then you have to interact with other people, right?
Right.
And if you can make other accounts and you can just do everything yourself, a lot of people are going to do that, which actually makes the game kind of antisocial in a way. So, what do you think
Right.
about this?
I think that the leveling requirements for profession um, are difficult enough that because a lot of the stuff, uh, gathering's a really good example. Like there's some stuff is just harder to level a gathering skill if you can't go into the higher level. Like you could do it, you could mine low level resources until you were a certain level. Um, but I think that unless you wanted to level a second character like for adventuring experience as well and have another high level character, I think that just having a second character, eh, some of the stuff you can just do from town though. So no, I guess honestly, I think you've made a good point that it does. You can make a second account or a second character. I know a lot of people do that, and I think that it will, at a certain point, discourage some of that social interactivity. But I also don't necessarily know that that's a bad thing, because if that player isn't able to get what they need done on their own, and they have to go somewhere else, and they're still not able to get it done, or that experience is good, then that's going to be discouraging for them. I think, to not be able to get the piece of gear that they need crafted or not. I don't know. I can see it from both ways on that one actually.
Yeah, yeah. It really depends on the player, and a lot of players would complain that they like can't do everything themselves, right? That's a lot of the solo player conflict on Reddit is just like, I'm playing this game, I should be able to play it alone. It's a percentage of the people, but most people actually believe that the game should be group play oriented. I think when I did in my survey, I actually asked what
Yeah.
you think, like, should it be group play, should it be solo play, and I think 80% of the responses were that it should be group play.
Yeah, yeah. I think if I had to pick, um, if I had two buttons and one is you can only have one account level, or if maybe your profession levels were bound account wide, I because not having two characters would stink just because you would be locked down to one class as well. But I do think that I would pick whatever would encourage the play. So, because to me that's what makes an MMO feel like is like needing to find other people.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I have two more sections I want to go through in this interview. I want to get more to the guild play option, and then
Sure.
I also want to ask about the PvP aspect. So the next question I have a list here. I'm going to read like a robot for a second here.
Okay.
But what is your guild name? How many players are active? Yeah, let's start there. What is your guild name and how many players?
Okay. So my guild is Haven. We have about 65 active players. Now that's active this phase. I would say that we've probably got about more like 50 active like day to day. So, and then another probably 65 inactive from other phases.
Okay, and then the guild rosters, like, how do you make your guild? Do you have like a application process? Are you finding people in game?
Yeah, so we kind of do both. We advertise in global chat. Uh, we recruit from groups that we pull in, and then we direct them to our Discord where we have an application and an onboarding process.
All right, very cool. And then, is there a max number of players that can be in a guild?
So the guilds, when you start them, they start out with a 50 player cap, and then you get guild talent points that can be allocated on a skill tree, and one of those slots said to is additional. It gets an additional 15 guild members per point that you put into that slot, and I think you can do that up to 10 times.
Oh yeah, that makes
But
sense.
what most people opt to do is just start a second guild on a character to just have an additional
Right.
50.
And I was actually going
Um,
to go into that. Is there other than not having access to whatever perks through the guild, is there? We call them shell guilds. I'm sure you know.
Mhm.
Um, is that a lot of the game? Is it like this guild point 1, 2, and 3? Because that
Yeah,
kind of process
absolutely.
really annoys me actually. Because I was playing in New World and it was just like we have three. My guild there was called Legion, and we had first battalion, second battalion. It was up to 5 battalions, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. I just wish this could all be under one roof, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people kind of have their own gimmick that they do. I think some guilds do like gemstones, so the guild name Ruby, guild name Onyx, guild name whatever. Some people do numbers, some people do different names. But yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah. So and then I guess is there a ranking system for guilds, and if so, what like place are you in the list of guilds on the server?
I not that I know of that there. I don't believe there's any sort of ranking system other than like community clout. you know.
Yeah, and I guess without counting like streamer guilds, would you say that you're one of the most active guilds on the alpha, or?
I don't. Probably not. We're definitely a smaller guild. I, activity like per user maybe. I mean, of the 50 people I said are on an active, they're pretty much always on an active. So in that sense, maybe. But definitely not in terms of like because we don't have the size, we don't have the ability to do nearly as much as some of the other guilds.
That's crazy to hear about though, because like I think in New World the company limit was around 50 to 100 players, and the fact that you have 50 online player like you have 50 current players playing at
Right.
a lot of the time, that seems like a big number. So either the alpha has a ton of players, or like the scale of this game as far as guild play goes must be ridiculous.
Um, yeah, I would say I know I was looking at I don't know every guild's individual numbers, but one of the more impactful smaller guilds from last phase that we interacted with when they were advertising about 300 people, and I know that they were still on the quote unquote smaller side of what the larger guilds end up being. I think some of the larger guilds are multi thousand.
That is actually ridiculous.
Yep.
And these are guilds that's made up of like 5 different guilds, right? They're all together. They're like 1,000 players.
Yeah. Right.
That's ridiculous. So then I have a question for you that comes from like guild play, because a lot of players won't actually ever experience some of the game, right? When I played New World, when I played Throne and Liberty,
Right.
there was these kind of these events that you would get 40 players into, and a lot of the casual players never got to participate in like guild fights, right?
Sure.
Guild fights are a very touchy subject because the individual skill expression within a guild fight is almost you can't even see it, right? You have that one player
Right.
who's known for getting the killing blows, and then you other than that, like it's just a mess, right? It's just like we lost because they had 10 players and we had 8, that kind of thing, right? From your experience in guild play and some of these events that have a lot of players in them, do you believe that the game is plain and simple balanced in this way, or do you think that there's a lot of problems in like guild PvP combat?
So we haven't done a guild war since phase two. Um, at that time, the system was pretty broken. And I know that they've done some changes to it, but we haven't done one, so I'm not sure if some of the issues we were having were fixed. I know for sure that some of the bigger issues we were having have been fixed, but excuse me. At the time, for example, you have this guild that has just say 10 shell guild. Um, at that time, all 10 of those guilds could war declare against our guild at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was not a 50 versus 50 fight. It was a 50 versus 500 fight.
Yep,
And
yep.
so that didn't feel very good to the point where it's like we really couldn't play the game at that time because you log in and the guild was big enough that they were everywhere. I don't know if you can still do that. I believe you can, but I'm not sure. The guild PvP is actually something we haven't done a whole lot of.
Yeah, there's a lot of players online that say that the groups and the guilds are just kind of destroying the game. Like they kind of ruin the solo player experience a lot
Yeah,
by
even
just bullying.
even even the even the small guild experience. So caravans, the caravan system is another one of the PvP systems that they have in place, where you take goods from one settlement to another across the map on a cart, and depending on how far you go, you make more money from doing it. It's one of the best ways in the game, and the larger guilds have made it nearly impossible to experience that content. And it's not just us; it's like anyone. Um, and I haven't witnessed like guild like top five guilds if they actually fight each other when they do this. I don't know, or if they have some sort of truce or what the deal is. But I know that if we put a cart down, we're getting killed immediately.
Yeah, and there was a lot of that experience in Throne and Liberty actually, where you just had.
Sure.
Uh, I mean, all the events were just a ton of talking between lots of different clans, and then the decision of the fight was kind of already made prior to the fight, which doesn't feel good, especially when you're not the
Yeah.
the person winning. And I remember I was playing in a guild, and there was the siege, the first siege. The first siege was huge because you got all of the resources that people like crafted in the city. And I remember there was this guild called Speedwagon that was just better. They were just the best. And we like made a deal with them to allow them to win. And I just like wish that these kind of interactions didn't happen so much because it keeps the game more
Right.
competitive if you don't have these like, I don't know. We weren't even allied with them. We were allied. We were soft alliancing with them, and like we could still fight them, but we just didn't move around. Yeah, it was ridiculous. But I don't kind of like that kind of gameplay, and I hope that that experience. I've been there and I've done that, and it doesn't feel good. And I really hope that they don't have that in the launch of Ashes of Creation, at least to a
Yeah.
big degree, right?
Yeah, and the PvP side of things, it's been a learning curve for me and a lot of my players, just because like this is kind of the first PvP oriented game that a lot of us have played, coming from just mostly World of Warcraft from an MMO background. Like PvP is very optional in that game,
It's true.
um,
It's true.
and and so to go to a game where anyone can attack anyone at any time for any
Yeah, this is
that was an
actually
adjustment.
it's actually a perfect segue because that system, I believe they call it the corruption system,
Yep.
is what I'm the most interested in when it comes to Ashes of Creation because I love games like Rust, but I don't think
Yep.
Rust would be a good MMO, right? I
Right.
love the idea of having the capability of doing and affecting other players. And from my understanding of how the system works, I'm gonna put it how I understand it, and you're gonna tell me I'm wrong. So pretty
Okay.
much what I think happens is you are able to attack other players. When you kill other players and when you die, you lose experience. Um, if you gather enough corruption, it turns into full loot PvP. So you either don't touch a soul and you're a nice person, or you attack everybody. I feel like this system means that like if you're gonna be evil, you be very evil, and if you're gonna be nice, you be very nice. And then just those players that are playing full loot PvP are playing a different experience of the game, and those people that are just being attacked by people that are trying to PvP them are kind of just like, why is this guy attacking me? You know, there's this two stagnation between the player base. Um, from
You're
your
you're 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 close.
okay,
It's
okay.
it's not it's that's not exactly how it goes. Um, you can attack anyone at any time. Um, the determination on whether you go corrupted and full loot PvP is on if they attack back. So they have the option once you start attacking them to do nothing, or they can fight back. If they fight back, then you are both within the PvP system, and you are not gain corruption when you kill them or they kill you, because you have both consented to PvP. The only time that you gain that corruption and go full loot PvP
is when you kill someone who does not attack back. Um, and so it's also worth saying that it's more than just dropping gear when you die, when you're corrupted. Going corrupted is essentially character breaking. Um, to the like it's not good. It's not fun. There's some ways around it that I think Intrepid needs to look into. Like right now, you can go corrupted and have your friend kill you to remove the debuff. Will drop items and gain XP debt, but it's your friend. They just pick up your items and trade it back to you. So right now, that's currently like the biggest issue with the corruption system is that it can just be pretty much circumvented entirely. And then you
Yeah,
also
it's
have
definitely
players
good.
that are just choosing to play that way because they don't care about their characters because it's an alpha. So they just don't care. They just sit in a town and they kill anybody that walks in, and that's not fun. And I think that when the game is released, people care more about their characters, and you won't have that interaction. At least not as much. You'll still have people that just do that for fun. You did have a follow up question after that, and I interrupted you. Sorry.
Oh no, no, there's no interruption. I guess it's an interesting thing to me because as a prospective player of the game, I want the corruption system to be something engaging, but I want it to be something that doesn't only feel negative, right? Because it sounds like if you bully someone, so the corruption system is around bullying, right? It's around like, what if I attack this player
Yeah.
for no reason, and then what if this player attacks me back? And so
Yeah.
it's kind of like a bully walking around with a stick, poking people, and then if the player attacks back, then the bully can take out his giant longsword and just like slice his head off, right? Um,
Yep.
and I actually, this does exist in World of Warcraft. It actually does. And I remember it because there's this guy that makes videos about like pretending to be a troll or something. I don't know how true the videos are, but he pretends to be a mob in like the starting area, and then he tricks.
I think I've seen
Yeah,
these.
he PvP flags and he tricks the guy to attack him, and once he attacks him, he just like whacks him to death, right? And
Yeah.
this is not like this is just not a healthy style of gameplay in my opinion, and it doesn't feel good. Like, it feels evil for one player and he's giggling and laughing and like ha 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 I'm so evil, and then the other player is just confused, and the only players that are going to make the mistake of fighting back are going to be like players that don't understand the system, right? So
Well, or I mean, what I witness more often than not is that most people understand how it works. I, the people that fight back that don't want to, it's typically an accident. Because the system is so crude in the way that you do toggle whether or not you can hit people, and there's settings for if your AoEs can hit people, and there's a lot of stuff that they need to work out on that end, I think.
that's true.
But in
And yeah,
general, if someone's gonna fight back, it's typically because you have offered a PvP engagement they are accepting,
yeah, and they don't
and
have a
then
duel system right in the game.
right, there is no dual system.
Yeah, that's a problem, I'd say. I think that's one of the better points of World of Warcraft is the just right-click duel method of playing the game. I mean, that's
Yeah,
what created the PvP like subculture in that game
yeah.
way back in the day. But is there a version of the corruption system that you see working? Is there any adjustments that you have thought about that you would make, or is this not an aspect of the game that you care very much about?
Absolutely. Glad you asked. um, so for me, the biggest issue right now is that any guild or group that's large enough can effectively corrupt at any time with zero consequence because, like I said, they can just kill their buddy, and as long as they're in a large enough group to do that safely and trade the item back, then they can kill you for any reason. They need to implement a system where the items you drop are also corrupted, cannot be traded either indefinitely or for a period of time. Definitely makes more sense to me because if I kill someone that's corrupted legitimately and I get their gear, I'd like to be able to sell that gear. But I think that putting a cooldown on it or a timer so that gear can be traded will be a much larger deterrent to at least the guilds that are large enough to use this workaround, but not large enough to have like 10 sets of gear just sitting around to the point I don't care. Because I don't really think that's a thing, or at least now it isn't. Be in the
You
future.
never know. You never know.
You never know.
I
You
mean,
never know.
the PvP players, they're some of the greasiest. So like,
Definitely.
you can see that happening. I feel like, yeah. But no, your opinion there, like how to dissuade players to do it, it makes a lot of sense because you can't really go through like, oh, well, players from the same guild can't pick it up, and you can't go through things like that because there's just so many easy workarounds, especially when there's already 10 guilds for one guild. Um, yeah,
Yep.
that system makes a ton of sense to me. Has anybody else has Intrepid said anything about what they or what they would fix about that, or have they just kind of put it in the game and you guys are
I
reacting to it?
I don't know that there's been any feedback loop on that with them. I think they've been focused on getting their servers to work, to be honest.
Fair enough, really. Yeah. The PvP is the main interest I have.
Sure.
Obviously, I'm a good person, right? That's what I'd like to say. So I'm not going to be doing any like evil things, but I'm expecting to be in the duel circuits, right? Be like the best 1v1er in the world. I don't like group play that much. I don't like these 50v50s, but I do really like just like right click
Right.
duel, I'm better, blah 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 blah, right? That kind of clout. I love leaderboard systems too. So, if there's like a
Yep.
won the most 1v1s or a ranked climbing ladder, those are the things I love the most. But yeah, we'll move on here. I'm going to move on to. I think I got everything. My 5 questions are down. That's for sure.
Nice.
I mean, I guess the thing that I would like you to answer as a closing remark here is, there's a lot of people on the internet. Surprisingly, it actually the graphs say. And the graphs are great. The graph of all of those super negative Redditors, and I think this graph actually makes even more sense and is even more interesting because of who the graph is about. This graph is a number of players coming from the most negative places in the world, the Discord and Reddit. And despite that, if you look at the graph, it actually alludes to lots and lots of players being optimistic about the game, which is not what you would expect from this at all, I feel like. Let me pull out the exact number here. The exact number is it says that 40% of people are not, 45% of people are not optimistic, and 41% of people are optimistic. This is a half and half, pretty much half and half split.
Wow.
Which is not what you would expect from Reddit. I was expecting like 90% no, 10%
Sure.
yes, But I think there's a lot of unheard voices, especially on Reddit, and that just are a ton of people enjoying the game that haven't felt the need to express their negativity, because we all know that being negative screams much, much louder than being positive.
Yeah.
Which is kind of why I'm so interested in making videos on this, because I really want this game to succeed. So should people continue to be optimistic? If so, why? Give them a plead, right? Say like, guys,
Sure.
you gotta believe it, right? This kind of thing. If you want to just add what you think about this.
Yeah. Man, that's a tough one. I would just say in general, the everyone's patience is going to wear out eventually. Like, I think everyone has a limit on how long they're willing to wait for this game great to be completed, to be solid, but I don't think we're there yet. I think there's a lot of people I think a lot of people just need to take a step back. They need to look at what is done, what parts of the things that are done are enjoyable, and and if I can persuade people to look at the game from the perspective that I gave earlier of, if it's not done and it's already feeling this good, and there are all these things that are under delivered that are supposed to happen, and you're seeing progress towards those things steadily, because I think that's kind of my biggest motivator, is that they're open with their development. You see a new live stream every month. They're not just stalled out doing, and they're not radio silent. there is and there are steps being taken towards releasing some of these things. And if that ever stops, I'm probably out. I think that would probably be the turning point, is if their communication and their transparency ever kind of starts to feel lackluster. Um, and I think that as long as we can visibly see steps being taken towards what appears to be the makings of a great empire, that we need to all stick it out, because I don't think anyone's to this scale attempted what Intrepid. I really don't. I think you said earlier that you're wanting to see them get as big as Final Fantasy and WoW in a way that no one's ever done before, and I feel that way too.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, it was a very, very nice time talking to you today. I really appreciate you taking the hour to talk to me. When I have this video all said and done, I'll make sure to send you a message and give you a little link, right, just in case you want to look at it. Some people don't like listening to their own voice, but if you want to give it to your guild mates too, and they can be like, "Oh my gosh, that's my guy."
Sure.
But yeah, it was a pleasure talking to you. I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for reaching out, man.
Yeah, you have a good rest of your day.
Yep. You too. Bye.